Welcome to another episode of Two Old Bloggers with Darren Campbell and myself, Dave Stefano, exclusively on Vikings First and SKOL. In this episode, we discuss the Vikings' decision to start Nick Mullens and how it's going to impact their playoff chances. We analyze the reasons behind the collapse of the Vikings' defense and preview the upcoming game against the Lions. Join us for our analysis, hopefully some engaging discussion, and all the latest news on your Minnesota Vikings. So let's dive in. All next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. Hey, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody in the chat. We see you there. From Mr. Bob Swede to Gary to Justin hopping in, Chuck. It's good to see you as well. The good and wonderful Raymond. And we have, of course, the beautiful Miss Mary. And Nighttime Mime. Good to see you back, or either that or this is the first time you've been on. I've seen your name around the Vikings land times before. But we are getting ready to start this show. But first, as normal, how are things in the Great White North, Darren?
Cold, Dave. Minus 31 today or something like that. We've finally hit the deep freeze. None of this minus 3, minus 4 stuff. The Celsius, we're going into like normal weather. So
cold enough to kill the mosquitoes.
Yes, sir. They ain't around now.
No. Well, we titled this one, Let's Do This, Vikings. We didn't answer exactly what this is, but we'll find out. It's week 18, the final week of the regular season, and our Minnesota Vikings go off to what we had hoped would be a battle for the division title, but alas, it is not. And so we head off to the Lions with our pride, and let's see if we can pull out the smallest chance, and a whole bunch of things fall in our favor to get in the playoffs. If not, we look forward to the draft. But let's get it started.
Let's do it.
The starter.
Yeah, this has become a weekly topic on this show, Dave. Vikings are starting so-and-so this week. The Vikings are bench so-and-so, and they're starting so-and-so. So he's back. Nick Mullens, your starter, but named your starter this week for the Vikings. I'm trying to sort of get myself positioned here on the better on the screen. But anyway, Mullens is starting for the Vikings. Kevin O'Connell made the decision to go with him instead of and bench Darren Hall. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I feel that. Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I think is that just trying to wonder. Yeah, I get it. I get the decision to do that. You still are in contention for a playoff spot, and I think based on the 3 quarterbacks that are on the Vikings roster right now, even though Mullens has got his issues, he's probably the guy that this offense will hum the best with him in there. Based on the offensive scheme system that Kevin O'Connell has in place. So I understand it, but I do have some questions about it. I do kind of wonder what the Vikings are really going to be what are they accomplishing much by doing this anyway, Dave? And looking at when you go with Mullens, last week I was in support of them starting Darren Hall in that game. I thought and I think a lot of Vikings fans out there were like, now's the time to get Hall in there and see if you can, we were all fed up with the turnovers that Dobbs and Mullens were producing at quarterback. And, I think myself, I just wanted to see, okay, can Hall be careful with the ball and still move the offense effectively enough that gives us a chance to win? Because Nick Mullens was not playing winning football because of the interceptions he was throwing. So try Hall, see if he could turn the ball over 0 or less, and again, still get the Vikings offense moving. And I thought that would be a better opportunity, give the Vikings a better chance to win. Well, early on in the game against that team from Wisconsin, it was pretty clear that he wasn't ready. He played tentatively. I think the play calling, he didn't look confident. I think the play calling was pretty tentative too, pretty careful with him, and he fell flat on his face. And so gets benched after a half. O'Connell turned to Mullens to provide the spark to the offense, see if they could somehow, some way get back in that game against Green Bay in the second half. Didn't work. And even if Mullens had been played completely lights out, it wouldn't work because the defense couldn't stop the Packers. So that was a problem too. But still, that's how they went. Okay, I understand that. However, I wonder, what are we getting? What are we accomplishing by starting Mullens tomorrow? They're going to lose anyway, the Vikings, I mean. Yeah, it might be more. Mullens is again, I think the offense is going to function better. He's going to throw a lot. He's going to complete a fair amount of passes, hopefully all of them to the Vikings and not to the Lions. He's going to, drive, pass for gobs of passing yardage. Maybe the best thing out of this is that maybe he gets Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. They both get over 1,000-yard receiving. I think that's the main thing that we're going to accomplish tomorrow. But I think we're still going to lose based on playing a motivated Detroit team with the injuries we have, with the issues that we have, and we're going to get into that later. But I think very little. Your chances of making the playoffs are so slim. You put up the scenarios up there that really, I don't think Nick Mullens. I understand it, but I'm not thinking it's best for 2024, which is where I'm looking at things right now, Dave. And I think that, hey, I said last week we had to be prepared starting Hall that things might get ugly, and they did. And I was kind of, as painful as it was, I was like, I think we got to stick with Hall for the entire game, and I think in this game, in a real live game against a team is going to try, they're going to play their starters. I think that it was worthwhile starting Hall again. Nick Mullens is a guy who is not the future for the Vikings. He is he's signed next year, but I think that he's got no guaranteed money. So they could cut him next year, trade him, whatever, and there's no guaranteed money there. So he's not what kind of quarterback he is. You know what he does well. You know what he doesn't do well. Hall is the guy, at least right now, one of the guys that I think we should be investing more time in. And I think I'd like to see him again in this last game of the year. Okay, let's see how he responds mentally. Can he bounce back mentally from like a really disastrous second start where he gets benched at halftime? Can he rebound from that mentally? Can he go into the next game against a pretty good Detroit team and play better than that? And, how does he handle that benching? How does he handle the adversity? How does he handle the in-game stuff? If you tell him, Jaron, you're going to be in there the whole game, doesn't matter how badly you do or how good you do, you're going to stay in there. So how does he deal with that? And like, if things don't go well for him, does he improve as the game goes on? Does he make adjustments? How does he lead the team for a full game? Those are all things that I think it's time to start getting tape from him on that over a full game, not just a couple of series, and start getting some data so you can start getting some answers to those questions. Because Darren Hall, I think, is going to be on the team next year and probably 2025 too. So it's time to start getting some answers about what kind of quarterback he can be. And that is going to be delayed now because you're starting Nick Mullens with the slimmest of chances of making the playoffs. It's going to be delayed until 2024, it looks like, and I don't think it's the right move. Dave, your thoughts?
Well, when it comes to Darren Hall, they do see him in practice, and there is something to be said about that. Kevin O'Connell does see him, so they should know where his progress is. Yes, I would like to have seen him in a full game, but they were quick to pull the hook because they're trying to win football games. I think that's the reason they selected Mullens over Hall or even Dobbs, because some of us were talking about Dobbs may be the one they put up there so that they can, get him now that he's settled down for a month and he's got more of the stuff in there, see what he can do, or at least showcase him to his next team as a backup, because they may be trying to decide between Dobbs and Mullens next year. Who knows how that's going to go.
Go ahead.
It's just they went with Mullens, as we know, and I think it's to give them, in their minds, their best chance to win the game, which falls in the 3.5% chance of the playoff scenario. And if they win the game, then they move up to 6%, and then you got to you need the other 2 losses, and then however the either or on the last 2 to squeak in, to back in. And I think they are saying all the right things, showing all the right things to do that. Whether they plan on actually doing that is a whole different story when we get to injury page and how they're treating some of the players. I don't know. But to show that public face of we're trying to win, and they might be, we're trying to win, wink, wink, wink. We're going to start Mullens. And the question is, I saw it early, is he going to throw up 3 interceptions? What's the over and under on interceptions? So it's going to be interesting to see whether they do. I would have liked to have seen Hall for sure. I wanted to see him progress through a bad start and go on, see what he did in the second half, but they yanked him just too quick. So Hall's going to wait till next year.
Yeah. The other thing potentially, Dave, maybe I'm just a cranky fan right now. And so, hey, Steven, I'm just a cranky fan right now. So, and maybe one game doesn't make a whole hill of beans in Hall's development for next year. But I don't think it would hurt. But the other thing that may have happened, and we don't know, is I think it would be something that a head coach would do, is like maybe Kevin O'Connell was like, okay, do I start Hall? Do I start Mullens? Or even if Dobbs was in the picture, maybe he's weighing the pros and cons of all of those things. And then he goes to his veterans and has a meeting with them and says, hey guys, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I want to start, there's some pros and cons to all 3 of these guys. Do you have a strong opinion on who we should start against Detroit, considering we still want to make the playoffs? And maybe they said, coach, it's got to be Nick Mullens. And so that was the clincher for Kevin O'Connell, who said during the week that he thinks Nick Mullens is the guy that can move the ball, move the offense the most effectively right now, which makes sense. But again, maybe the vets, I would have got my vets, I would have at least given them the opportunity to air their thoughts on it and get them to weigh in on this. And maybe they weighed in and said it's Mullens 100%.
I would assume so, because he delayed announcing who until he could talk to the players, both in the quarterback room and the key veterans that he queries on. Now, it is what it is. People are saying, is O'Connell such a quarterback whisperer? Since we've gone with, backups to backups to backups this season. Well, he did squeak out some wins with those backups. So, I don't know. You can debate it. It is debated. There is, some people say, well, look how good Kirk Cousins has been. Well, is that because of O'Connell? Or is that because of Kirk suddenly figured something out, this late in his career? And O'Connell did take Dobbs, win some games, did take Mullens, win a game. Could he have done it with Hall? We don't know. We never gave him a full game. So, and as Aaron says, positive culture is a tricky in the line of work. And this line of work, sometimes you have to have some cojones. And yes, and sometimes you have to be that disciplinarian and that hardcore. But I think players can play for any type of leader as long as they're consistent. And if they're not consistent, that's when problems start. And whether we're seeing consistency this year, we don't know. We won't know for a while. And that's part of the problem. When you lose your starting quarterback, your season's over.
Yes.
Generally. It's rare that it's not. There's a few exceptions. 2017's one of them. But it is most of the time, you lose your starting quarterback, you're done. Well, we got a little bit further than just done. We may end up being done, but we got a lot further than anybody thought we would. And that has to reflect well on O'Connell. As much as we grouse and get frustrated over some of his decisions, he did win some games. We did not, lose it out. We won a few more. So just 3. So it is what it is. Well, that brings us to theme 2, another problem.
Lots of problems.
That's what happens. Defense collapse.
Yes. Well, if you're looking at reasons why the Vikings season has collapsed, like you were just talking about, Dave, when you lose your starter, season's usually over. And when you lose your starter and then you go through 3 backups, the backup to the backup to the backup and then around again, that's a problem. And clearly the reason that the Viking season is where it is right now is because we're playing backup quarterbacks and backups to backups, and that usually doesn't go very well long term for teams. Backups usually, they might have success for a game or two, like Josh Dobbs did, but eventually they show you who they are and they show why they are backups. Mm-hmm. And as teams get more film and take away what they do well and take advantage of the things that they don't do well, which sometimes are more than the things that they do well. So quarterbacks is a big problem for the Vikings, along with the injuries. But the defense, particularly the last 3 games, hasn't helped very much. Let's look at this stat. In the last 9 quarters, since the 4th quarter of the Cincinnati game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and since then, the Vikings have given up 87 points in 9 quarters. If you look at 19, I just took it, it's a random number, but like 19 quarters before that, they'd given up 50 points. So that's quite a difference and that stretches, that 19 quarter stretches over 5, almost 6 games.
Well, it's 90 points in the last 3 games. So go ahead.
Well, just so if you're looking at more of an analytics, if you want some analytic stats on that, ESPN's defensive efficiency ratings in weeks 4 to 14, when the Vikings defense was like the talk of the town, they were first in the league in defensive efficiency. So in weeks 15 to 17, they are now dead last in the NFL in defensive.
And they're 15th overall in this season.
Yeah. So those just showing you how things have really slid badly the past 3 games. So why has that happened? I got a few theories, going to run them out. And I think one of them is that in the past 3 games, they've played some pretty good offenses, particularly the last 2 games in that team from Wisconsin and Detroit, and then they're going to play Detroit again tomorrow. So, so it would be expected that the Vikings defense was going to give up more points anyway, because you're playing better offenses, much better offenses than you were in that week 4 to 14. When that stretch where we won 5, and the defense, again, was the talk of the NFL. Well, we were playing a lot of offenses that really are mediocre to bad. The Bears are surprisingly 14th in points scored this year. We played them twice. you had we played the Falcons. They're like 26th in points scored. Played the Raiders. They're 24th in points scored. You got played the New Orleans Saints. Even when we played the Packers, the Packers on October 29th, when we played them the first time, were nowhere near. They're right now, they're 11th, I think, in points scored, so pretty good. But in October 29th, they were really, really struggling. They were nowhere near the offense that they are now. And in the last 5 games, they've averaged 27 points a game. So you played them. You played Detroit twice. We had Cincy with Jake Browning in there, so we should have done a little bit better than we did. But when the offenses that you face matter, and if you're playing really good offenses, it's tougher for your defense to keep up that high level of play, I think. So that's been one issue. I think another issue is that I think injuries have had an impact and caught up with us. We spend a lot of time on here, especially lately. I think we're all frustrated with Marcus Davenport and the fact that he doesn't seem to have doesn't want to play.
Motivation.
Motivation is lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all those things. But when he played, which unfortunately was almost not at all this season, when he does play, which is rarely, he's a good pass rusher. He's a good player. He can make an impact. And so not having him the whole season has been a problem for the Vikings, because he was supposed to be the other guy, the Zadarius Smith to Danielle Hunter this year. And we have not had him at all, basically, in the game. And I think that's really impacted the Vikings pass rush. And it really impacts you because then you lost DJ Wanham against Detroit. So now, and this is not an edge rush unit that's got a whole bunch of depth behind it. So you got Danielle Hunter, and you don't have Wanham, you don't have Marcus Davenport. Where's your pass rush coming from? Well, we've been seeing it. And then it doesn't help. You lost Byron Murphy, who hasn't really been playing that well, but he's better than some of the other alternatives in there that you got to put when he's out. He's been gone the last 2 games, not playing tomorrow either. And then again, you lost Wanham. So I think that we
had Jordan Hicks out for a while.
Yeah. And somebody's there is right. Yeah, Davenport, he's stealing the money this year, Dave.
$13 million.
Yeah,
for 2 full games and 2 partials.
Yeah. So when the Vikings don't have a whole ton of depth on the defensive side of the ball, I think, this year. So when you lose a few starters, and they're key starters, that's going to impact your defense. You can only do so much as a coach. I think, another issue, I think, is that the league has, as great as Brian Flores has been this year, I think the league has kind of figured out lately what we're doing, particularly with the coverages. And I think our blitz packages, we're still blitzing a lot, but I think that the league has figured out how to block up and where we're blitzing from. Normally when we blitz, it's either Jordan Hicks and Ivan Pace up the A and B gaps, either one of them, sometimes both, or they're sending Josh Metellus or Harrison Smith off one of the edges. The league has figured that out, and they're blocking it better, and we're not getting to the quarterback very much lately, and it's leading to some big-time passing games for guys like Jared Goff and Jordan Love, and probably Jared Goff again tomorrow. So that's an issue. But
part of that
again,
is the speed of which those quarterbacks throw the ball.
Yes.
How quickly they get it out of their hands.
Yeah, for sure. So those are 3 big issues. And the other one is that at the beginning of the year, you said it, I said it, I think everybody said it. They're like, it's great to get Brian Flores, but man, he doesn't have a whole lot of talent to work with. And that is still the case now, Dave. Really, I think this defense has performed well above my expectations. You probably agree with that. But Danielle Hunter is a stud, even at 29. But after that, Josh Metellus has played really well, a lot better than expected. Cam Bynum has played well. Harrison Phillips has played well. So there's been some good things there. Ivan Pace has been really, to me, he's been a solid player as an undrafted rookie, and I think he's only going to get better and better, and he's going to be a key player for this defense in the future. But outside of Hunter, like, who's your blue chip guys? We don't have a blue chip guy at corner. We don't really have the along the defensive line, even though I like Harrison Phillips. We don't have like a real guy. You got a stud along the defensive that line. So again, talent matters. I think that Brian Flores has been, again, he's squeezed about as much juice out of this defense as possible. And at some point in times, and at some point in time, that catches up with you, especially if you're playing against really good defenses. And even with the collapse lately, Dave, the Vikings still are 12th in the league in points given up.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're still 8th in defensive DVOA. Now tomorrow they might slip a little bit. We'll see how it goes. But hey, at the beginning of the season, we were like, man, if Flores just with the offense we have, if Flores could just get this defense to be like an average unit, 15th in the league, middle of the pack. Well, that's probably where the Vikings are going to lie. So I think Flores is, despite what's gone on, you don't like to see it, but I think that Flores has done a hell of a job, and I hope he seems to be enjoying it. Hopefully he is back next year because, if he's still got that talent thing, like he's got to get to a point where there's some guys we got to get rid of. Like if Flores shouldn't be having to start a Caleb Evans, who every team in the league picks on when he's out there. You've got guys like Andrew Booth Jr. We got to cut ties with him. Like the most notable thing he's done in 2 seasons is start a fight with after the game with the Packers and whack Aaron Jones in the face.
Well, let's watch it. Boom. All right. Now, actually, Booth did not hit Jones. A Packers player hit Jones. Booth has his hand up there. Has now got his arm by his neck. But it was not the punch. The punch. Now, we're not going to see it here. This is the
good video. This is like the Zapruder film there.
I'll run it back to the beginning because that's where it shows who actually hit. But because I watched this and I went, wait a minute. All right, here we go. Starting from the beginning. All right, we see Aaron Jones. He walks up. Booth is already jaw-jacking with somebody. You see a hand fly and hit him in the face. Let's go back. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. They're getting in here. They're jaw-jacking, and we missed it. We can't go one frame at a time. Boom. There's the hit. Right? You saw the hand. There's no way that's Booth's hand because it's not. It's the dude in the black hoodie.
Or actually, I think it's the guy in the green.
No, the guy in the green was a coach or somebody trying to stop it. It was the guy in the black hoodie that hit him. And that guy in the black hoodie is a Green Bay Packers player.
Yeah.
The deal was he was trying to throw a punch at Booth and missed and hit Aaron Rodgers because Booth blocked it. And it hit, not Aaron Rodgers, but the running back, Aaron Jones, and it hit him, and then all hell breaks loose after that. And then, of course, the big guys get in the middle of it and say, hey, no more of this shit. But what Booth was doing over there, jaw-jacking in the first place, I mean, it was the end of the game. Everybody's congratulating each other.
Yeah.
And then they go on to hug and, great game, blah, blah, blah. We'll see you on the golf course here in a couple of weeks, blah.
But, yeah, guys like Andrew Booth Jr., I think it's just not happening for him here. And the sooner they move on for him, and the better. And so we're going to need, but I think like if Kwesi Adofo-Mensah can start drafting a little bit better, can hit on a free agent signing or two defensively in the offseason. I think that, we're going to like, and we can keep Brian Flores. I think we're going to like what Brian Flores does with this defense if he's got all the tools at his disposal that he needs, or at least more than he's got right now, because talent on this side of the ball is an issue.
And I think it should be a high priority in the draft. If we go for a quarterback high, that's fine. And then after that, it should be a whole lot of defense. and then throw in a running back somewhere in there.
Yeah. The needs keep piling up.
Yes, they do. And that happens. It happens. Well, that brings us to theme 3. Vikings at the Lions. Jared Goff whispering sweet nothings into KOC's ear. I beat you once, and I'm going to beat you again. As normal, we start off with the slideshow.
Ugly.
Here's your injury reports. It is not nice. Vikings have already called out Byron Murphy, Jalen Naylor, Theo Jackson, Jaquelin Roy, Brian O'Neill, and Mekhi Blackman. Questionable are Ed Ingram and Christian Darrisaw.
In case you're counting, those are 3 of our starting 5 offensive linemen who are either out or might be out tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, but they're playing to win.
Yes. Yeah.
Quarterbacks, as I've always said, 80% of games are decided by who's the better quarterback. That is a no-brainer in this one. Jared Goff is the better quarterback. PFF has him 8th on their power ranking, and they have Nick Mullens at 21st. When you get into the detailed QB stats, you can see a huge difference here. The only difference where Mullens ranks better is under pressure and with big-time throws. That's because he loves to gun the football.
Yep. Yeah. Well, he certainly tries a lot of big-time throws, Dave.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he's successful, and that goes to that 53.1 grade, but he sure tries, and he loves doing it. When it comes to offense versus defense, we'll zip through these because we saw these 2 weeks ago, but there has been some slight changes. Vikings offense 29th, defense on the Lions 18th per PFF. When we go to DVOA, it's not it's 23 for the Vikings offense. They went down, and 13th for the Lions defense. Now when we get to Elias, we dropped again. We're 12th on dropping to 12th, and that is because we're losing games and not playing as well. There's whereas the Lions defense is 15th. We have taken 43 sacks as the Vikings. We are 29th in giveaways with 32 and a -10 differential. The story of the season: you cannot win games by turning over the football
multiple times a game.
Now, flipping the script, we have our defense versus their offense. And as you can see, our defense is 24th. It's dropped per PFF. Their offense is power ranked 6th. When we get to DVOA, our defense is dropped to 8th overall, and their offense is 5th overall. When we get to Elias Sports Bureau stats, when we're talking yards, we're dropping to 16th, and they are 3rd. They are 3rd for passing, 4th for rushing, and 5th for points. So that tells you that the Detroit offense is pretty good. Vikings offense is dropping. Wonder why. Our defense it ranks 15th middle of the pack with 42 sacks. Most of those, 15 and a half of those belong to Danielle Hunter himself. All the rest are a mixed bag. The Lions are favored by 3.5, and the over and under is 46. When we get to special teams, we went up actually a little bit. We're now 28th ranked, and they are the 19th ranked. However, they beat us in all but one category, and that category is kickoff returns. We are just barely above average. But we did go up in all of our stats on the left-hand side, except for punt return, which we dropped a little bit. So there's improvement by week 18. And that's your slideshow for today. And that brings us to Nick Mullens being named starter.
It does. It's going to be a bit of a different game preview, Dave, for me this week, and a quicker one too, because just because we went over the quarterback situation, how I feel about that. But again, Nick Mullens in there. This game, with him being in there, the game's going to be more palatable. Aaron, I agree with you. Pretty much agree with you. Is that, and we'll get into that here a little bit later. Probably going to lose, but it's how we lose. I think that's how I'm looking at things and what I'm going to be looking for. But I think the offense is going to be more palatable to watch for us tomorrow with Nick Mullens. He's going to sling the ball again. Hopefully,
Sling it to him.
I think he needs 120 some yards to get to 1,000. Something that JJ can definitely do. And then Jordan Addison is another guy. He needs a bit more work to do, but it's possible. But I think that's possible. Yeah,
I don't think we're going to run. I think
normally we can't. And Detroit's been really great.
Defense is, against the run is ranked like third. So.
Yeah, so they're going to have to pass if they want to move the ball, and I think they can do that. Going to be a little bit harder if you don't have Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw in there, but and so that's the Vikings offense. I think they're going to be able, with Mullens, and they're going to be able to put up enough points to make this game closer than certainly it was last week against that team from Wisconsin. But having said that, when you're looking at things. We can't run the ball, and we're going against a really good run defense. That's a problem. The pass protection has really gone south lately, and we might be down both starting tackles tomorrow, and maybe our starting right guard too. That's a problem. I think that we're kind of good.
Well, that's from Foster. He's part of Bleachers to Speakers, the Fans First Sports Network's Detroit Lions team. And yes, they are pretty good. And so I'm glad you came over and hopped on there, Foster. Good to see you, my friend.
There's those things. The defense has really, again, we went over it in the previous theme. The defense has been faltering of late. I think the best chance for the Vikings to win this game is if Jared Goff somehow gets hurt early in the game, and they got to bring in our old pal Teddy Bridgewater, who be playing his last regular season game because he says he's retiring now after this year. So that would be our best chance to win this one. With Goff not being in there, I don't really see that with. I wouldn't wish that on him anyway, and I don't see with their offensive line how that's going to happen. So,
how many people still on the team played with Teddy? Harrison Smith.
Danielle Hunter. Was I don't think DePala wasn't on the team. Maybe he was.
He was.
And that would be Harrison Smith. No, O'Neill was 2018. He was drafted. So Teddy was gone by then. So it's just Hunter and Harrison Smith. Not many.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think again, the Vikings need a whole bunch of things to happen for them to. They got to win. They need a whole things to happen after that to get the playoff spot. But really, they're going to lose.
And probably the only way we see Teddy is if it's a blowout.
Yeah,
a blowout early.
And that is what really scares me about that is that I don't want to see. Last week was very demoralizing watching what we watched, both offensively and defensively. And like, I have to say, now injuries have been, like Kevin O'Connell, injuries have been an issue. They've really impacted the team. They've impacted what Kevin O'Connell can do with this team. But fans don't really care about that. And if you look at it, has he done a good coaching job this year? I think with what's happened, it'd be hard to argue no. But when you look at the Cleveland Browns and what Kevin Stefanski has done, they've been in a lot of similar things have happened to them. They've had lots of injuries to key guys. Nick Chubb went down; he's done for the year. They've lost Deshaun Watson. They're on their fourth quarterback. They brought Joe Flacco back from the scrap heap. They've had their offensive line has had all kinds of injury problems this year, and yet they are in the playoffs. Kevin Stefanski got it done. Kevin O'Connell, it looks like he's not going to get it done. And so that starts tomorrow. What I want to see is that I've said it, I don't think the Vikings have much of a chance in hell of winning this one. But even if you don't win, I want to see what the effort is like tomorrow. I want to see how they compete. We did not see a team that was competitive against that team from Wisconsin. It was just awful to see. And I'm going to be looking at players. How energized are they for this game? What are they? Does it look like? Does the team, especially if things get bad or tough, are they going to quit? Are they going to not put in the effort that you expect professional football players to make during the game? And if they start doing those things, if the effort isn't there, if the energy isn't there, if they're playing sloppy, if they look disinterested, that is something that reflects on the guys that are leading, your coaches who are leading the team, and it reflects on Kevin O'Connell. And I'm going to start having questions about, is his message getting through to this team now at this point in time? Well, last year was a lot different than this year, and so I've got some concerns. But if they have a real flat, terrible performance tomorrow, that's going to really leave me very concerned about the direction of this team under Kevin O'Connell going into 2024. And now the off seasons can always create things like, people get excited about the draft. They get excited about some of the free agency that happens. You get into OTAs, it's a fresh start, all that stuff. And some of the stuff, the things that happened the previous season kind of get forgotten, but they won't be forgotten by me if the Vikings really lay an egg tomorrow. And,
Yeah, but if 3/5 of the offensive line's out, we already know half the defense is out. You can't expect a win, but what you can hope for is everybody that's in there is playing their heart out.
Yes. But if they aren't, that's a problem, because you cannot play half-assed in the NFL. It's probably dangerous for you on the field to do so, but it's also embarrassing, and you're not going to be competitive at all. And when players play half-assed, again, it's probably because they don't really agree with where the team's going with the coaches that they've got. That would be very disappointing to see from only in his second year as a head coach, if that's happening tomorrow with Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings team, with Kevin O'Connell as their head coach. And it's going to get, I got to admit, Dave, like I'm a dumb, fickle fan, right? But after what I saw last week against that team from Wisconsin, how badly we played, and then I watched the college football semifinals, and I watched what Jim Harbaugh is accomplishing with the Michigan Wolverines. And, I got to admit, I started thinking, what if? Did we make the right choice? Did we make the right choice not hiring the guy who's won everywhere he's been and taking a guy who'd never been a head coach in the NFL before?
Well,
I don't.
Rumor was we were, and then it got torpedoed by one of the owners group, minority owner.
So tomorrow, win, lose, or draw, Vikings they got to play hard. They got to show up. Everybody's got to be giving it like they're playing in the Super Bowl. And if there's guys that aren't, and they're missing tackles because they're doing the Olays because they're thinking about next season and all of this, that, and the other thing, and they're checking out, I'm going to have concerns about where this team is headed and who's leading them. And that guy that's leading them is Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, we'll find out. Yeah, nothing's going to happen. He's going to be here next year.
Yes, he will. That's not the question. The question is, when he's here next year, is he the guy that can reverse what has happened this year? Which is right now you're on as all the good things you did in the middle of the season. Right now you're on the track to lose 6 of your last 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't good, no matter how many injuries you have.
But it happens. 2016 as a prime example, and they turn around and went to the NFC Championship in 2017.
It's true. We got to think of those things for sure.
Now, however this game turns out tomorrow, I guarantee those that are watching, we will turn to the big QB debate. It is coming. We do have opinions on it. Yes, I know you have opinions on it. We will try to also educate you as we go on Vikings First and SKOL. As you see, we had our second SKOL Search episode looking at Chop Robinson this week. If you haven't seen it, go look. He's a defensive edge rusher out of Pitt. And boy, would I love to have him on the team. He's projected to go in the first round, probably low first round. That's my guess. But all that plays in. We are going to be looking at the quarterbacks. Our own in-house talent evaluator who writes for the Draft Network is Tyler Fornes. He's the one that's going to be breaking those down. We also hope to have some other draft experts as we work our way up to the draft. So you're going to get to see all of that. Plus, Tyler Fornes is going down to Mobile. We hope to get him out to the Combine as well, reporting direct from Vikings First and SKOL to you on what all's going on. So we're going to get into that. It's going to be hot and heavy. We'll get into the Kirk Cousins versus draftee arguments. We'll get into we need the defense. Where on the defense do we need to focus? We'll get into we need a running back. Are we going to grab a running back? Because none of them this year seem to have done worth of shit, right? We had one start, a number one starter. Next one comes up, he gets hurt after looking great. And then the third one comes up and he's hot and cold. So all that's going to be discussed, and it is in the future. But for today, Saturday, week 18, we still have some football to be played. So there's games this afternoon, which will be entertaining, or one this afternoon, one tonight. And then tomorrow we have our game at noon, and most of the country gets to see it if they use their over-the-air viewing. It's a major Fox showing tomorrow. And we'll be here live at the 2-minute warning to watch those final 2 minutes with you and to react at how the game went. And if we lose, then we're watching scores to see, hey, where are we in the draft order? If we win, we're watching scores to see, hey, do we have a chance to make the playoffs? Either way, it's going to be a fun day tomorrow, and I highly encourage you to come over and join us. Like I said, live at the 2-minute warning when we go live. It's a blast.
Definitely stay into that one.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, any last words there, buddy?
Do want to just say tomorrow might be the last Vikings football game of anything for 8 months. So we could be into but again, 2 old bloggers, First and SKOL. We're going to be there for you to talk Vikings football every week in the off season. And just as I want to thank everybody who stuck with us here this year during this tough season and been tuning in. Thanks, Mary, especially you. Been tuning in to listen to us since we moved to the new platform and grow the channel. Just appreciate you guys so much. And just want to let you know that Dave and I have been talking about we're looking at tweaking the show format a little bit. So there could be some new format, new types of segments that we'll be running and not just using. And we're going to try to freshen things up a little bit. So wait for that and see what's coming. Might be happening here in the next month or so.
We'll see. Now, after every season, we go through and we evaluate. And inputs from you guys help. What would you like to see? So.
Yep. You probably got better ideas than I do.
Anyways, what do we say?
We say, SKOL Vikings and beat the Lions, even though I don't think we will.
SKOL Vikings.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator.
Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!